Hello, friends. So we're back again, and we're reading out of our book, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. Now, today we are on chapter 18 titled Leslie. Now, looking at this picture, can you make any inferences or predictions on what this chapter might be about? Now, we're also focusing and zooming in on our main idea and details. Now, remember, we can always use the pictures or the title of the chapter to help us figure out the main idea. I know already it's going to be about Leslie, and it looks like she likes taking off her shoes. I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and read to find out more. Leslie had 5 fingers on each hand and 5 toes on each foot. For each hand, she had an arm, and for each foot, she had a leg. She was a very lucky girl, and she had 2 lovely, long brown pigtails that reached all the way down to her waist. When Mrs. Jules asked a question, Leslie could raise one of her hands. When Leslie was adding, she could count on her fingers. When Paul pulled one of her pigtails, she could kick him with one foot while standing on the other. But Leslie had one problem. She didn't know what to do with her toes. She had 10 adorable little toes and nothing to do with them. As far as she could tell, they served no useful purpose. "Suck your toes, that's what I do," said Sherry, but Leslie's foot wouldn't reach her mouth. Don't do that at home, friends. "Well, that's all toes are good for," said Sherry. She put her foot in her mouth and went to sleep. No, thought Leslie. They must be good for something. They just have to be. During recess, she asked Dana, "Dana, what do you do with your toes?" "I scratch the back of my legs," said Dana. "First, I scratch my left leg with my right foot. Then I scratch my right leg with my left foot." "But my legs don't itch," said Leslie. "That's good," said Dana. "In that case, you can scratch my legs. With your help, I can scratch both legs at the same time." "No, never mind," said Leslie. She walked up behind Louie, the yard teacher, and hopped on his shoulders. "Louie," said Leslie, "I don't know what to do with my toes." Louie tugged her foot. "Yes, that is a serious problem," he said. "But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take them off your hands for you, or rather, your feet. Just cut them off and give them to me." "What?" asked Leslie. "You don't want them, so I'll take them," said Louie. "You won't have to worry about them ever again." "No," said Leslie. "I'll give them to Miss Mush," said Louie. "She can make little hot dogs out of them." Miss Mush was the lunch teacher. "No, I'm not going to give my toes away," said Leslie. "All right," said Louie. "I'll give you a nickel apiece for them." So let's put a pause on it, friends. If she really was to give her toes to Louie, how much do you think that would cost her? Or how much do you think Louie would have to pay Leslie if each toe was a nickel apiece? We know a nickel is 5 cents. So can you do that math at home? All right, so we have 10 toes, 5 cents each. So if you got the answer 50 cents, Louie was willing to pay Leslie 50 cents for all her toes. Oh my goodness. Let's go ahead and read to find out what else happens. "No, you can't have them," said Leslie. "Why not?" Louie asked. "They're no good to you anyhow. And think of all you can buy for 50 cents. The bell rang. "I'll think it over," said Leslie. She ran back to class. Mrs. Jules, said Leslie. "I don't see any reason for keeping my toes." "Oh, Leslie, I'm sure there are lots of good reasons," said Mrs. Jules. "Well, I can't think of any. My legs don't itch, and I can't get my foot in my mouth. Louie offered me a nickel apiece for them, and it seems to me like a good deal, but I wanted to check with you first." "I think Louie was pulling your leg," said Mrs. Jules. That's just an expression that means he was joking with her. "No," said Leslie. "He was pulling my toes." What would he want with your toes? Asked Mrs. Jules. I don't know, said Leslie. But if he's willing to give me 5 cents apiece for them, then I'm going to take him up on it. That's 50 cents. At lunch, Leslie walked up to Louis. Okay, Louis, she said, you can have my toes for a nickel apiece. That would be 50 cents. Not so fast, said Louis. Let me look at them first. Leslie took off her shoes. Yes, yes, said Louis. The big ones are good. And the ones next to them, but the most I'll give for you for the rest of your toes is 3 cents each. So let's put a pause on it. Now, how much money do you think Leslie's going to get from the yard teacher, Louis? If he's now said he's only going to give her 3 cents a piece instead of 5 cents for those 6 toes. Let's keep reading to see if you're correct. Leslie was furious. 3 cents each? You told me 5 at recess. I'll give you 5 cents for the big ones. But just look at that scrawny little runt of a toe on the end there. You're lucky to be getting even 3 cents for it. I think you're getting a darn good deal. I happen to like that toe, said Leslie. Fine then, said Louis. Keep it. I'll just take the 2 big toes and we'll call it square. He reached in his pocket and pulled out a dime. Nothing doing, said Leslie. These toes are sold as a set. It's either all 10 for 50 cents or no deal. What am I going to do with just 8 toes? Then forget it, said Louis. I'm not going to give you a nickel for those scrawny little end toes. Fine, said Leslie. No deal. My toes will still be here if you change your mind. She turned and walked toward the hopscotch area. Wait a second, Louis called. I'll give you $1 each for your pigtails. Leslie turned around and looked at him with fiery eyes. Cut my hair, she exclaimed. Are you crazy? All right, so first of all, that was an interesting story. So if he was willing to give her $1 each for her pigtails, and she has 2 pigtails, how much money do you think Louis is going to give Leslie? Okay, so now let's go to our questions. Then we're going to talk about the main idea and details. All right, let's look at number 1 here. What is Leslie's problem? And what is Louis' solution? Number 2, what does the expression pulling your leg mean? I told you that during the story. I wonder if you remember. And number 3, what is Leslie not willing to cut off? I'll give you a hint. Okay, now let's go back and look at the main idea and details. Okay, so remember, when we're focusing on main idea, we can look at you guessed it, the title. I know that this was about Leslie. She didn't know what to do with her toes. All right, so the main idea is Leslie did not know what to do with her toes. Now, what about some of those details? All right, can you think of any details that we read about that happened to Leslie? So one of the details is that Louis, the yard teacher, tried to give her a nickel each for her toes, but then he changed his mind, didn't he? Then he said, no, I'm going to give you 3 pennies for the non-big toes. All right, so that's just one detail. Then in the end, something happened here. He then said, okay, well, wait a minute. I'll give you $1 each for each of your pigtails. And then, of course, Leslie was not going to do that. So there's many more details in this story. I want you to come up with some on your own at home. All right, that is it for today's Read Aloud. I really hope you enjoyed this lesson. Hey, it even goes along with what we're doing in math this week. All right, Miss Hughes here, and I'm signing off.